Time for ACC Central, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Monty Taylor, Micah Butel, and Nick Dioli.
Welcome back, college baseball fans. No Nick Dioli with us tonight. We've got baseball Micah, though. He is in full swing. Looks like he's got a beautiful set up there. Luckily, he's got the Just Means More logo right up there so that did I say Just Means More? Just Means Less logo right behind him, so I didn't have to figure out the overlay there. Micah, welcome back, man. We're doing some deep dive previews. Who we deep diving today?
We're deep diving some BC bird ball, baby. Man, I ended my ballpark tour on it, and now we're gonna start off 2025 talking them. Can't wait.
Yeah, and it's an exciting team. I going through all 16. I was thinking football mode, but all 16 teams really got me kind of excited, and I can see a path to all 16 teams making it to the NCAA tournament. Obviously, some teams are going to have a little bit of a harder path to get there. Boston College might be one of those teams, but I think if things go right, they could certainly be in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this was a team, right? Like, let's call it what it is. They were probably the most disappointing team in 2024. Like, they had the talent. Obviously, it was Todd Renato's first year, so you know, the transition over. I mean, losing a guy like Mike Gambino, I think Todd Renato is a fantastic replacement, but you know, you and I both love Gambino. Like, you want Penn State in the ACC more than anyone I think I know. So just for baseball, of course. So, you know, from that standpoint, right, like that's a tough thing. And again, like when I was there, it was like I appreciated the honesty that a lot of the, you know, staffers and stuff kind of brought up was it's hard to recruit to Boston College between academics, between the religious aspect, between, you know, obviously you play the first month of the season for the most part on the road. Like, it's a tough place to be successful, but it's obviously it's possible. And I think 2025 could be, they could be the most disappointing team in 2024 and the best bounce back team in 2025.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar, we're doing deep dive previews of every team throughout the preseason here. We start with Boston College. We're going in alphabetical order. Boston College getting the first look, and it's funny because we'll get into it, but they've got a lot of guys who are still from that regional team 2 years ago in their lineup. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see where they go. But as we jump into some of it, we got to talk about the key departures, and obviously no one bigger than John West and what he meant to this team and what he meant to the school as well.
Yeah, I mean, losing a guy like John West, who at the end of the day, right, was your ace for multiple years, is going to be tough. I mean, obviously, I could push back that maybe Cam Leary is a bigger departure from just overall production standpoint. No disrespect to John, he did struggle a little bit last year. He'll be the first to probably admit that if he watches this. But you know, those were two also key locker room guys. That's honestly not saying their production wasn't important, but you know, those were the guys that saw success in 2023. They're the guys that, you know, I mean, think about it. How many times have you posted the Cam Leary back-to-back home run weekends, right? Was it Wake and Florida State? Am I getting that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you know, he not literally put the team on his back, but when push came to shove, he made the play that got BC over the hump against both Wake and Florida State. So obviously, again, you know, especially again, guys like Barry Walsh too, another big locker room guy. It's going to be interesting, you know, how they react to that loss. But I mean, all things considered, like this team still feels like it's got a lot left.
Yeah, I mean, you do lose Michael Farinelli as well, who was part of their weekend rotation a little bit. Parker Landwehr, who got a lot of the bulk of the starts at catcher, and Cam Carraher, who was a transfer that came in and did really well last year. So some big losses, but you know, they bring in a ton of new faces. Lots to be excited about. They bring in a lot of guys that are trying to go from some of the lower divisions in the pitching staff, trying to bulk up that pitching staff. But there's one player that you mentioned before we even got on here that you were really excited about, and obviously we'll talk about him a little bit more when we talk about the outfield. But you're a big fan of one of these outfielders. I'm a big fan of the other.
So I'm glad we're both big fans of one of each, so that way we can start the hype train. But so Jack Toomey, right, is the guy obviously I'm most excited about. He's the guy that when I was doing those previews last year, Monty, for all the weekends for the ACC out of conference, he was someone I harped on as someone to be really concerned about for when Holy Cross took on BC. He's one of those guys that he brings obviously a lot of success history. Hello, Oscar. Took 2 minutes, Monty. I told you it was inevitable. But we're not talking Clemson yet, Oscar. That's later. That's a couple days from now. But that standpoint, he was the 2023 Patriot League Rookie of the Year. Had a pretty solid 2024. I don't know. I would say it was a disappointment, but he did only hit 261 last year, so it wasn't necessarily probably the year he was hoping for. But I think he could be someone that really provides some depth in that outfield. Obviously, as you saw in our key departures, right? You're looking at 3 outfielders gone that were the everyday production. So adding him is great. And I'm sure you're going to talk about Josiah Ragsdale a little bit.
Yeah, no, Josiah Ragsdale, he's one of our players of the summer, had a monster summer, had already announced the transfer. And, he's a game-changing, top-of-the-lineup kind of guy, and he's probably going to be the center fielder. In 35 games over the summer, he stole 24 bases, hit 323, had an 878 OPS. Really exciting stuff. I think those two guys and one of our other favorites, Adam Magpock, in the outfield are going to be one of the more underrated outfields in the league.
Yeah, they're going to have a unit that I think, right, has a lot of upside. I would not be surprised, right, if, when we look at the preseason, all ACC ballots, you don't see too many BC guys on it in general, but especially in that outfield. But at the end of the season, you might. I think that's something I think that's one thing I love about Todd Internato and what he did at Wofford. And he's obviously proven it, right? He can develop talent. He's going to put these guys in situations to get on base. I think both guys provide some speed as well, so that's going to be beneficial. You want guys like Todd likes to steal bags. He likes to play small ball, and I think that's beneficial for this unit. And again, he loves sound defensive play. I think you've got 2 guys that can do that coming in, and I think it's just kind of something to be. There should be some excitement about yes, you lost Cam Leary, and that's going to be very, very hard to replace. You lost Barry Walsh. It's going to be very, very hard to replace. But I don't think they did a bad job of replacing them.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've got some really fun stuff. Barry Walsh had to be replaced a lot of last year anyway, I think due to injuries. So, you already had that. So I think they're deeper. But, let's talk about the bulk of the newcomers in here are pitching. So that's going to be a great segue into talking about the rotation options. And they've got one guy coming back in AJ Colarusso, who I think is going to be much better than he was last season. Obviously he's a guy that he started, I think, every game in the weekend for them, along with John West. So you had John West, AJ Colarusso. So at least you're getting him back. And he's a definite guy who's going to be in the rotation again. And then after that, that's the question, right? Who's coming out of the rotation on Saturdays and Sundays for Boston College?
Yeah, I think this staff is going to be the determinants of whether this team returns to the NCAA tournament or not. Because last year, I think that was the biggest step back, right? John West was not the John West we had hoped. Obviously, Colarusso, his ERA was like a 7.2 or something like that. He didn't have a very good spring, I'm sure, for the standards he was hoping to have. It's going to be interesting because, again, I saw Kyle Kipp a lot this summer. He started for Kingsport. Granted, it's summer ball, right? He didn't go super deep, probably 4 or 5 innings max throughout the summer, but he was nasty. I walked away I thought he was the best pitcher I saw all summer in Kingsport, and we had some pretty good guys. We had some Tennessee kids. We had what Tennessee's hoping to have their Sunday guy on that roster. So, it was something to kind of watch him do, take steps forward this summer. And I think I'm really excited too about Tyler Mudd. Obviously, he was not a starter last year. I don't think he got a single start all year, but he's got really good strikeout stuff. He was averaging over a strikeout per 9, one strikeout per inning. I don't know why I said per 9. That would be really bad if it was per 9. But obviously he was hurt, and I think if he could stay healthy, he could be the guy that I could see being that Friday guy. Like, I'm really, really hoping that Tyler can be healthy because I think he's got the stuff that could be a difference on a Friday night.
Yeah, he had a lot of good stuff early in the season for Boston College. He was kind of reminding me, it was him and Phil Fox were the two big relief guys that had surprised me in the beginning of last season as ACC play started. Those two guys had been relied upon a lot by both teams, and I thought they'd done both very well. And then Tyler Mudd went down, and he got back right towards the end of the season and to try and help Boston College. But he's a really intriguing guy because I think he's the bullpen ace, but like you said, he could very well be in the discussion and has the talent to be a Friday night guy.
Yeah. What transfer do you think has the best chance to make this rotation? Because, I know Carl Meyer comes from a D3 school. I don't remember what D3 school it was. Monty.
MIT.
Okay. So, he obviously has been a starter before, but D3 baseball is good baseball, but it's not ACC baseball. So I'm curious if he takes that step forward. I know they grabbed a couple guys too. They have the Columbia transfer and JD Ogden. He started a couple times last year for Columbia. His ERA was pretty high though. So I'm curious kind of what route they go with this because, Peter Schaefer, he's the other arm, right, that we might want to talk about, the grad. He came from like Johns Hopkins or something like that.
Yeah.
So, he obviously has some proven history, but he also, right, did he have like Tommy John in 21 or something like that? He had an injury.
He's had a lot of injuries, so he hasn't pitched in like 2 years, but like when he did, I'm trying to remember we didn't have like full season stats since 2021 for Peter Schaefer.
Yeah, so it's kind of, that's obviously concerning because it means when he's healthy, he's good, but that kind of was a big problem for BC last year, right? Obviously Tyler Mudd got hurt, so that kind of prevented some things. Obviously maybe not on the pitching side, but you talked about Barry Walsh, like he got banged up. BC maybe wasn't the least healthiest team in the ACC, but they definitely weren't at the top of the healthiest teams in the conference.
Right.
So that's obviously something to be a little bit worried about because, no disrespect to Boston College. I think the hardest thing that when I talk to, just some people at the game when I was there is like BC can get good talent. It's a matter of whether or not they can get the same depth as like a Florida State or a Virginia, just because of where they're located. Like a lot of the best talent in the Northeast doesn't necessarily want to stay in the Northeast. Like they want to go places where they can play year round and not be indoors and, have to play the first and a half on the road. Like, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of have that depth. That was something that, right, this was SoCon play. Wofford always was the deepest teams in the Southern Conference when Todd Arenado was there. They could pull anybody off the bench and they had roles they could fill. Simple. I'm curious if BC can't stay healthy, we have a list of arms that we think could be in that rotation. But do we know if any of them? There's really not a proven arm in this rotation either. Would you say, Monty, you've done a lot more deep dive talking to coaches? It kind of feels like Boston College might be the most unknown rotation. Maybe
other than Colarusso, yeah, I think. It's wide open. D1 also have started doing their head coaching interviews with Darren Vaught. Shout out to Darren. But they had Tony Donato on, and I think he even mentioned the potential of somebody like Dylan Howenitz, a guy who didn't make any starts last year for Westchester at D2, being a potential starter. So they have a wide open. I should probably bring up the rest of the pitching staff potential here. They have a wide open option, and you mentioned those injuries, and Joey Ryan coming back is a huge thing. He was a big piece of their regional year under Gambino a couple of years ago. That was another guy who was out and filled up with a bunch of transfers. I know you're a big fan of Gavin Hash as well because he's another Kingsport Axeman. But any one of these guys on the screen could be in their weekend rotation.
Yeah, and again, it's the fear, right? Like Boston College, with the talent they have in a conference that's not as deep as this conference has become, probably you feel good about them going into 2025. The problem is you just don't. There's no we have so many teams in 2025 when we're going to be talking Clemson in a couple of days. We're going to be talking Duke in a couple of days. We know what they have. We feel good about what they have. Again, no disrespect to AJ Colarusso, but is that really the only starter you want to feel comfortable knowing anything about? His numbers weren't that special in 2024. He has the capability to take another step forward, but again, we got guys like Jamie Arnold going over at Florida State. Like, you know what you're going to get from Jamie Arnold. So it's going to be interesting to see. And again, if you look at, I think we're going to talk their schedule at some point, but like you look at their schedule, it's a pretty interesting schedule too.
Yeah, and yeah, we are going to talk the schedule, and it's just interesting looking at their guys. Somebody I'm excited about. Again, they're going to be depending on a lot of guys from lower divisions, and Matt Spada is one of them. A guy from Wesleyan, another D3 school. We already talked about Carl Meyer, who's in the discussion for the rotation, and he is an MIT guy. I didn't even know MIT had athletic programs, to be honest. But then you've got Dylan Howenitz, who's a Westchester D2 guy. You've got John Kiwatakowski, who's from Manhattan, Alex Bryant, Holy Cross. Those are obviously D1 schools, but they're on the lower end there. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these guys step up and where they fit, and if Boston College can figure out their roles quickly, that's also a big help, right? Because you want to make sure you can figure out the guys' roles, get them settled in quickly, and that can be an advantage versus some of the other teams in the conference.
Yeah, and I think I like the approach from Todd Renato to go grab such like lower level talent arms, because you know that they know how to be in high pressure situations. Like, no matter what anyone says, like, yes, obviously 28,000 in Omaha is probably different than 4,000 at any other ballpark, but for the most part, like, an ACC Friday night is just like when you're locked in as a competitor, there's no difference between competing for your conference championship at the D3 level or the D1 level. You're locked in. Your whole goal is to win. There's pressure around you. Half the time, the pressure comes from internal. It doesn't even come from the outside noise. So I like that approach. Obviously, Monty, our biases lean Virginia, right? That's where our biases come from. They've had success with the D3 guys, the D2 guys. I think, I'm glad coaches are seeing like, hey, like it's one of the benefits of the portal, in my opinion. Like, yeah, there's some things I don't love about it, but kids who got under recruited in high school that have proven, hey, we're D1 for all American caliber players. Like, give us a chance. I like that BC is kind of betting on that route and not maybe trying to mold individuals from like the castaways from a Power 4 school because they have the Florida attached to their name, but then they have no proven track. Where again, like you said, Dylan Howitz, like he has a proven. We had 30 outings last year, like
31, yeah,
and a pretty low ERA if I remember correctly.
Yep,
I would rather take that personally. So I do like that Todd Internato and his staff are doing that this year.
Yeah, and here's what I kind of project. Now, when I put up these projections, these are typically basically all mine. We didn't really have time to decide on these, but this is what we're looking at here. You got a nice picture of Kyle Kipp there, the former Kingsport Axeman. I like him as a starter. I think he'd be a great midweek guy. I think they're going to go Colarusso, Bryant, Meyer, with that initial rotation. But then I kind of like the bullpen, to be honest, the way it kind of sets up there, with Tyler Mudd in that relief ace role that, whether that's sorry, my dogs are being a little loud. And, ideal. Huh? You're on mute somehow.
Hold on. There we go. I muted myself in case there's a squirrel outside, and Oscar likes to look at the squirrels, so I might as well jump at the window. So I muted myself to prevent what happened to you, Monty, which is funny because I was saying we're a pet-friendly show around here, and then I muted because I muted myself because of my pet. So
yeah. Pretty funny. Yeah, my dogs were just going at it below me and on some paper.
Hey, they're all in on BC Bird Ball. Can you blame them?
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I really like the way the bullpen kind of goes together like this. I kind of like how it sets up here. Obviously, Gavin Hash isn't on this graphic, but he's another guy that, could be in that discussion for, a high leverage role. But I actually really like how the bullpen shapes up here.
I love Tyler Mudd in that relief spot. Like, if Colarusso, Bryant, Meyer, whoever gets in some trouble, you turn to him. Or again, like he's the guy that maybe if you can't find your third guy, maybe you throw a Dylan Howitz as a opener, and he goes through the lineup one time, and then Tyler Mudd hopefully comes into a situation where you're up 1-0, 2-0, and he has the ability again when he's healthy to win you a ball game. I do like how this it sets up a lot better than maybe I thought it was going to look, Monty. So kudos to you for kind of laying this out a little bit more because I was still a little bit worried. And again, there's still a lot of what ifs, but it does feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, I'm guessing here based on, I mean, they're educated guesses, but ultimately the coaches haven't quite made their decisions yet either. So there's no guarantee this is how it rolls out. This is just what we kind of see. And what I kind of, I say we, but I kind of think what I kind of see based on, a number of different things. But, the coaches haven't made the decision. So if any coaches or players are watching and know that we're wrong and are just laughing at us, we're aware that that's a possibility.
Hey, you can tell us how we're wrong. You can present us some stuff. We're happy to redo this podcast if we have to. You want to give us a little bit more? I mean, more power to you.
Moving along to the position players, and this is where it gets really fun because you're going to see a lot of familiar names. We'll start really quickly with the catchers. They bring back Beck Milner, who is who had some moments last year. I mean, Parker Landwehr, he split time with Parker Landier and I think a little bit with John Collins, but they also bring in Gunnar Johnson, who could very well be the starter at catcher as well. He played for Todd Donato for 3 years.
I know Gunnar too well.
There you go. Yeah, you want to talk about Gunnar a little bit?
No, I don't want to talk anything about Gunnar because he likes to beat. He loved playing ETSU. He loved them. So if Boston College should schedule a weekend series at ETSU, you can promise Gunnar Johnson's going to have a good weekend. But no, I mean, I'm kind of surprised he's not the projected starter in your eyes, Monty. But I guess in the sense of again, Beck Milner when healthy was probably the guy last year, maybe depending on how you want to look at it. But I mean, he's sound defensively. He gets on base. He's a Todd Hernandez type of guy. That's why I'm kind of I almost lean him as potentially the starter, but I'll be the first to admit I didn't watch much of Beck Milner last year because wasn't an everyday guy.
Yeah, I think a lot of places are projecting Gunnar Johnson. I'm just a big fan of Beck Milner. I think they're going to both play a lot either way. Okay. But Gunnar Johnson being a Todd Donato guy is a big boost. And so it'll be interesting to see because again, I talked to Patrick Roach a couple months ago in our interview, and he talked about Gunnar Johnson coming in, and they were like, "This is our second year in Todd Donato's system," but Gunnar Johnson comes in with 3 years of Todd Donato. This will be his fourth year, so he's got double the experience everybody else does.
Yeah, and I think it's beneficial too that he's going to be able to, at the bare minimum, I think he could be a pretty good locker room guy. He's going to be able to because. Again, it's not fair to say that coaches coach in strange ways, but Todd Donato has always been known as the old-fashioned, again, when he was at Wofford, he had the New York Yankees rule, no facial hair. I mean, he's just that kind of guy. So sometimes you need someone that understands how a coach works to kind of be like, Coach, rip me a new one. Yeah, well, that's coach's way of loving on you. He's not the sunshine and rainbows coach. He's the old-fashioned discipline coach. There's nothing wrong with that coaching style, in my opinion. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see again. This is a position that's obviously wide open, but at the same time, you feel good about the options you have. And again, Cesar Gonzalez, I looked him up because I'll be honest, Monty did not know who he was, so you put him on the slide. He's got some pretty good track record in high school, so that's something to be excited about too. That you have two older guys and a young guy that I think can learn from those two. And I would like to think, based off what I know from the Wofford program days with Todd and Renato, that. Cesar Gonzalez probably wasn't recruited to be you're going to be the everyday catcher in year one. So he's probably prepared to start developing and not necessarily, hopefully hit the portal after being developed by Todd and Renato on his staff.
Yeah, Gonzalez is a two-way guy with a 95 mile an hour fastball. So, we could see him.
Can he throw it and catch it at the same time?
I don't think so. That'd be really impressive. But I'm going to pull up the whole infield here. And we've got a lot of familiar names here, don't we?
This is a pretty underrated infield in college baseball this year. I mean, that is returner, and guys you feel comfortable. Nick Wang, one of the more underrated third basemen, in my opinion. Obviously, Patrick Roach can go in that role, but he also can hit. So he might basically your third basemen. Both of them are probably going to be in the lineup every single day. The difference is who's at third, who's designated, who's the DH. But I love Sam McNulty. He was someone I think was not appreciated enough last year in 2024. Kyle Wolf, again, really solid first baseman. This is a very solid infield.
Kyle Wolf was hurt a lot of last season. He's he played hurt 53 games, 315, 14 doubles, triple, 7 home runs while he was hurt. Patrick Roach, he was a College Baseball Central All-Star, if you recall. And he shortly after that, he got injured and didn't come back until towards the end of the summer when he got a chance to Cape Cod, and he was having a monster year. So you got to wonder what might have been the difference there if he stays completely healthy. I mean, he still hit 306 with 12 extra base hits and stole 10 bases. So, but now you've added in some really good depth here because like you said, Roche is going to be in the lineup, but then you've got Owen DeShazo who's got some pop in that bat. He didn't have many at bats last year. He can also play in the outfield, but he's a big kid. I think he's 6'6". He can hit the ball.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then we didn't even mention Vince Cimini, who's
also pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So was he like? He had a pretty. What was it? Was he? I can't remember what. I'm struggling, Monty. There was something he was like. Was he really good at walking? Like there was something that he did like. But I felt like extremely well. Like he wasn't a power hitter, but he did. Yeah. So okay. So shout out to Monty for the spreadsheet that I probably should just look at. Right. 30 walks last year. I mean, he obviously drove in runs at a pretty high rate with the 37 RBIs. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see. He was. I mean, it's funny. Like looking at the lineup, he's probably the least explosive bat of the infield, but still hit 240. Still had 37 RBIs. Like he gets the job done. Like you put a runner on base, he's probably driving him home. So that's obviously a huge thing to have. And again, he brings that fifth year senior leadership.
Yeah, fifth or sixth. I haven't.
Yeah, I was like, is it sixth year? I know he's a grad, but like,
I can't keep track of some of those. So, but we talk about how underrated this, how good this infield is. But now that I talked about one of the more underrated outfields in the ACC with Toomey, Ragsdale, and Magpok. I mean, Adam Magpok set up for a breakout sophomore season, I think.
Yeah, I got to watch him a lot this summer in Elizabethton. He was already someone that I was enjoying watching in the spring. I think he was probably the most enjoyable ACC guy I got to watch all summer because we saw that kind of growth, and he got better as the season went on in 2024 in the spring. And I saw him blossom in the summer of 2025 or 2024, in the Appy League. And of course, he was robbed of an All-Star. No, I think he made the All-Star game. It was someone else that got robbed. But anyways, like he had an incredible summer with Elizabethton. He continued to flash his offensive ability, his pop, his ability to work at bats. He's so sound defensively. I mean, they had him playing a little bit of outfield, but I think he played majority to third base.
He's an infielder by trade, but because of
that's what he was playing in the summer. So like the nice thing is he's a utility guy that can really go anywhere. Like I think that's something that I think is going to be very beneficial, obviously. And then again, you got the two transfer outfielders as well. I mean, this is a lineup that has proven results, especially offensively, that I think you should be excited about. And I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to struggle too much defensively from a unforced error standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of it. Let's look at that potential lineup now. Like we talked about, Patrick Roach would be in that DH role. There's a nice picture of him, even though it's showing him field, even though we've got him in the DH role. But
great job, Monty.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at here. Again, you could go Beck Milner or Gunnar Johnson at catcher, but other than that, the spots are pretty much – I don't think there's really a position battle out there except for at catcher.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, maybe Magpok makes an argument for the infield, but I mean, I could see like I'm not wishing this upon Vince Cimini, right? But if he struggles or something like that, maybe that's where Magpok jumps in if there's enough outfield depth there. But I think to start, this is about right. Again, the catcher position we can debate back and forth on who we think that should be, but it's not a bad spot to be in, considering it kind of felt like for a second there, oh man, you're losing John West, you're losing Cam Leonard. Like, oh, this team's going to take a step back in 2025 from 2024, which is already a step back here. And it's like, really, the argument is the expectation is they should be better in 2025 because the majority of the team is back.
Yeah, and it's year 2 under the head coach, and I think that'll be a big boost. I think Boston College is going to be better than people think. Here's a potential batting order I threw together. With Magpok leading off, being the switch hitter, Ragsdale batting second. I mean, those are two leadoff guys in front of Wolf, Toomey, Roach, and Wang. I really actually like this lineup a lot, even though it's very, very right-handed, but the roster is very right-handed.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun lineup to watch, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm excited for this. It's fun batting order. We'll be sharing these on social media, get people's thoughts on it. But, yeah, let's talk about their schedule. They've got a pretty fun schedule. We've got, on the left, some key non-conference. They're going to be coming to Richmond. Second or third weekend of the season they're going to play William & Mary, Richmond, and VCU, and then they're going to play Richmond again in the midweek before heading to Virginia for the first ACC matchup. But they've also got UConn twice, and then they've got that Bean Pot. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think what I like about their schedule the most is it feels a lot more challenging in the non-con this year than last year. Like USC Upstate is one of the better programs in the Big South. New Orleans is one of the better programs in the Southland, which, by the way, I don't think I'll be able to get over for a game, but I'd love to try. I believe
you've got some Round Rock that weekend.
We got Round Rock. I mean, technically Lamar is also at home now because shout out to Lance Berkman canceling the tournament that was normally done by Houston Christian, aka he's no longer at Houston Christian. But obviously I like that weekend of William & Mary, Richmond, and VCU. I wish they were playing VCU twice instead of Richmond. That's no disrespect to Richmond. It's obviously from a history standpoint, RPI standpoint, probably better to have played VCU twice. But, I mean, Richmond's not a bad choice either. All three of those teams are good mid-major teams, so it's not like you're playing, pushovers. Like, obviously, Rhode Island, Stonehill is probably not going to do much for you. Shout out to them for even playing those games in February. That's going to be brutally cold. Have fun with those games, guys.
I'm shocked that Boston College has a home opener in February. I'm shocked they are able. Hopefully, they make that happen. But yeah, that's going to be cold.
Yeah, I am very, very shocked that they're doing that. But again, obviously, UConn's a beneficial one. Northeastern's a beneficial game. Overall, I mean, they do a really good job. Again, I like how they did segue at least, right? Like just staying in Virginia for those 8-9 days.
Yeah, spring break.
So that was smart of them to do that. It's gonna be a fun layout for them too. I am annoyed that they're doing the same thing they did last year with that weird weekend only 2-game thing. And this year, instead of Maryland, we're talking about at UMass Lowell. That's a little frustrating, if I'm being honest, just because that's not going to help your RPI at all in the last couple of weeks of the season. But, I mean, that is what it is, I guess.
That's a road series for them.
Yeah, that's the only beneficial part is at least you're doing it on the road, so you get some points. And, like, UMass Lowell plays in the old single-A ballpark for the Boston Red Sox Lowell Spinners, so it's at least like a kind of fun place to play, I guess. But, I mean – It's after doing that Maryland series last year where that actually had some potential to be something. That's just, you're going to have to win the series with Stanford and Cal, in my opinion, if you're on the bubble to really feel good because UMass Lowell is only going to hurt you.
Yeah, that's really tough, though. They go to California and they come right back for the ACC tournament. So they go out, because I know Stanford finishes their season in, I think, at NC State. So, nobody's going out west right before the ACC tournament except for Boston College. California will already be out there. Yeah. But yeah, they got an interesting schedule. They're going to play those other teams that might be down towards the bottom of the standings with them in Pitt, Notre Dame, and California. So they've got an opportunity to make some noise there. It's going to be really interesting. But let's finish up here. Where do you think BC ends up in the rankings?
I haven't gone through Monty and done my 1s through 16. I probably should do that at some point so I can actually answer your question a little bit better. But I did like that you mentioned. What'd you say?
You didn't do that for Jake last month?
Yeah, I guess I did. Let me see what I sent Jake because that was, again, that was a lot more pre-deep dive. Let's see. What did I send Jake? But anyways, while we do bad podcasting, I think that 2025 for Boston College just needs to be like, they need to be a bubble team again at the bare minimum. I mean, last year, I went into that weekend going up there for the Maryland game thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be winners in, losers probably out. And both Maryland and Boston College are limping into those games in the first week of May. And it just kind of was like, well, not that it was for nothing, right? But it just kind of lost its luster. It was a little frustrating to see. So I think, right, in 2025, you want to see them competing for something till the very end. I mean, even then, they were eliminated from the ACC baseball tournament like a week before the final weekend, right? I think it was like were they the first one eliminated?
I think so. Yeah, I think Notre Dame Notre Dame and Pitt came down to the wire.
They were going back and forth down the stretch there. So, like, obviously, that's kind of frustrating if you're a fan of BC. So I think at the bare minimum, right, 2025 just needs to be a step forward from that standpoint. And I think obviously a good year is, of course, making the NCAA tournament. But I mean, I think like preseason, I can't seem to find my here it is. Here it is. I put BC at 11, Monty, and I put a team that you give me a hard time for behind them. And I, now doing more research, would definitely switch the order of some of these teams. But
which team did you put behind them?
I'm not answering that question because you know exactly who
Is it UNC that you put behind them?
I'm not answering that question, Monty. I'm not going on the record of being that down on some team, maybe named North Carolina. but I did think that Boston College was probably going to be better than Pitt, probably going to be better than Virginia Tech, even a little bit better than Cal. But, I do think that this is a program that, I mean, I think the ACC is probably a 10 to 11 team league, like bid league. So, I have them on that 11-12 radar. So they're right on the cusp, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're going to be right in that same conversation. And I think that if everything goes right, they can be an NCAA tournament team again. If everything goes right, they stay fairly free of injuries and the pitching staff comes together like it potentially could. I think they could be in that conversation. Ultimately, that also means if everything doesn't go right, they can be on the other side of that, right? And towards the bottom again. But we're a positive looking group, and we think they're going to be threatening in that conversation. So that's going to do it here for us with Boston College, right, Micah? Unless you got anything else you want to add.
We are 30 some days till bird ball on day of recording.
On day of recording, yeah, I was going to say.
Day of releasing, like 25, 26 days from bird ball.
Yep. So we're going to be back tomorrow night with Cal, the Cal Bears, our first deep dive with them. So we will see you then.